Hey, this is Judah Mantell from SceneForge Studio, and in this video I'm going to go over how to effectively use video surfaces in your scene. Hopefully this will clear things up about the way they work behind the scenes to allow you to use them a little more streamlined when you're working on your projects. So here I have this pretty boring basic scene of just some objects with a floor plan in the background, and most importantly this video surface here. Now this was brought in using the new asset browser menu. And you'll notice that just like any other object, when you select it, you have options on the right-hand side. By default, up at the top, you have two things visible here. Or most importantly, the content type is set by default to video and image. You can also set this to compositing, as I'll get to in a minute. So this video is mainly going to be focused on the difference between these two options and how it relates to exporting content, the timeline system, and other stuff like that. So the most basic way to use this is as a video and image input source. So I can click Select Content File, and I can select an image to start, and that'll get displayed here on the image or on the video surface. And using these sections or these settings over here, you can choose whether or not it casts shadows, whether or not it's a lit material, meaning it responds to lighting in the scene. So you can adjust the material properties, and whether or not it casts shadows. In this example, I'm going to leave unlit on because it's easiest to see. If the image is flipped, you're going to want to rotate it so the blue arrow, which is the forward direction, faces your camera, like so. And that's basically it for this content type. It's just a single image or video that is going to play and be displayed on this surface indefinitely until you change it. This is useful for putting stuff in the background of like windows in an environment or far off backdrops in the distance. This is just an image, but if you want to swap it out for a video file, as I'm going to select over here, we have this stock footage of this canyon racetrack thing. And unlike what I'm about to show you, this is not something you can control on the timeline. This video just loops indefinitely over and over again. And again, it's great for backdrops in windows or in the far distance just to add more content to your scene without having to worry about 3D elements. But if you did want control over the actual playback of the video, which I'll show in a minute, you're going to want to switch to compositing. And this is the other method of projecting footage onto this video. Now, this compositing system is shared between the display composite option in shoot mode. So I can click this button over here to configure the compositing, and I can access that same menu by clicking Configure over here. And you'll see that when I'm configuring a compositing footage, you get this chroma key menu. Now, there are plenty of videos on this YouTube channel about how to use this chroma key menu. This video is not about that. This is more of an explanation of what's happening behind the scenes. But, for example, I'm going to click Select Video Clip, and I'm going to go down to my Downloads folder. I'm going to bring in this video of this stock footage over here. Now, yes, I could select a color and I could try to key it out if you were using something like that with footage of a character, but obviously that's not what we're doing here. So we're going to swap this for just a color that's not in the scene, like that. And so now you don't get any keying, you don't get any transparency, it's just the video here. And I can click Finish Compositing, and now that's running in the background on this display. So I can click Activate to have that footage running. And you'll see that unlike the other option, this is not playing on a loop by default. That's because we now have a timeline track that we can use to scrub through and play back on the timeline. Now, this timeline track gets generated for videos because the chroma key system essentially runs in the background. Unlike the default content type where each video surface can have its own content running, this is content that's shared between any active video surface or, in shoot mode, the display composite option over here that overlays it. So this is essentially the same thing over here and over here. So this video track is not linked to an object, like if I were to click timeline over here and animate this. Like, for example, when I delete this object, the timeline track goes with it. As opposed to when I delete this video surface, the timeline track stays, because this is running in the background in the ether floating around somewhere. So you can always get it again by clicking Display Composite or by bringing in another video surface, switching the content type, and click Activate. So now we have that running over there. So because of that, even if you delete this over here, and even if you delete this over here, you can always get it back by going to either another video surface or shoot mode, clicking Display Composite, or editing the footage over here. Now you'll see that we can't get the timeline track back. What happened there? Well, the timeline track gets generated every time you specify the clip. So if you delete it, you can just reselect it again, so it knows where the footage is, and now it'll generate the timeline track once again. So if I were to swap this footage for something that has a little more structure to it, such as this green screen test from an early version of SceneForge, where you can see actual movement going on, this is something where you're going to want the timeline to export it properly. So unlike something that's just looping endlessly for a backdrop, this is something you're going to want keeping the actual frame rate and pacing of the video. And so what's cool about this is that because we have access to this timeline data, when we click Render Camera View, I'll set a bitrate of about 8,000, and I click Export Timeline Video, you'll see that the video is now playing back at the same rate as it's being captured, meaning that when you click End on the render, you're left with a really nice, really smooth video that has both your CG scene as well as the smooth, crisp video running in the foreground. So, as a general recap, general rule, if you want something in the background, in the distance that's not super detailed or controlling, then you're going to want to use a regular video image source over here. But if you do want something more structure, or for example, chroma key footage with an actor, or something on a TV, for example, in the world, you're going to want to use the general compositing input source. Now, there are some quirks being worked out, some bugs that are always being improved upon and fixed, so keep that in mind. But generally, hopefully this information will help you work a little more streamlined with your scenes and your projects. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.